Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest aliens and UFOs encounters video. Haven't done one of these in a while, and I've had a few people ask when I'm going to return to the world of aliens and UFOs, so I thought I would mix one of these in here. This time again involving the world of reddit.com, specifically the subreddit called Alien Encounters, and as a nice treat for everyone here, I'm going to delve into three three specific encounters, each of them different from each other, but still very fascinating, but ultimately a little scary when it comes to their encounters. But each of them has their own specific set of stories that I'll give my own thoughts and opinions on it as well. To give you an example, the first one has to do with cloud visitors. The second one has to do with a UFO encounter over by the beach. And then the last one has to do with, and this is probably the scariest one, sleep paralysis. So very interesting stuff. So let's go ahead and let's share all this information here. I'll again give my thoughts and opinions afterward on each one. Let me know what you guys and gals think as well. So without further ado, the first one is called Cloud Visitors, and here's what it says. This, by the way, is from a user by the name of HeavyRun5523. So they say it was 4 a.m. and I was sitting outside, still feeling the effects of the mushrooms I'd taken earlier. The night was quiet, the stars were out. I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the peace, when I noticed a cloud directly above me. It was low, no more than 20 feet up, and it was glowing softly. As I stared, I saw two, maybe three figures standing on the cloud. They were tall and slim. Their features were hard to make out, and a sudden jolt of surprise ran through me, and for a moment I felt a wave of panic. But strangely, I wasn't scared. It was like something was calming me, making me feel like this was supposed to happen. Now, the figures were looking down at me, their eyes faintly glowing. It felt like they were studying me, observing me closely. My heart was pounding and my breath was caught in my throat. We stayed like that for what felt like minutes, just looking at each other. I wanted to speak, to ask who they were, but I couldn't move or find my voice. And then, suddenly as they had appeared, they vanished. The cloud dissolved into the night, and those figures were gone. The sky was empty again, and everything was still. I sat there for a while trying to make sense of what had happened. It felt real, more real than anything I'd ever seen. Even now, thinking about it, I can't shake the feeling that it wasn't just the mushrooms. I know I saw something, and it felt like they were really watching me. The sense of panic had faded, but the memory lingers, changing the way I look at that night sky forever. And that's it. That's everything from the user HeavyRun5523. So let's talk about that here. For starters, the big red flag is obviously this user stating up front that they took mushrooms. So whenever you hear something like that, you kind of have to look at it a little bit, with a skeptic eye. I've talked about that in other type of encounters, not just in the world of UFO, but also ghosts and spirits and so on, or even cryptids. Something else that's creating a hallucinatory effect. If you have that already being stated up front, you kind of have to put your doubt on things. But let's pretend that that was not the case. That as a user stated, the mushrooms weren't really impacting them. So in this case, they stated they saw a cloud that was about 20 feet up from the air from them. It was nighttime, but they could make out the cloud because it was glowing softly. But more specifically, on top of that cloud, almost like they were up there, almost like little angels of sorts, were two, maybe three figures that this person saw standing on the cloud. The only thing that could describe about them is that they were tall and slim. I wish that there was more analysis placed, like the user was able to give more details. But again, considering it's nighttime, you have the cloud there, it's glowing, and you can imagine that it's creating the visibility behind it. In this case, those little figures, it's creating a bigger problem and making them out. That's all that they could see. But the other thing that the user could recognize was that their eyes were faintly glowing, and they were definitely staring at him. What were they doing? What were these little aliens from this UFO, this cloud-like UFO? What were they doing? Were they studying them intently to do something else? Or they just happened to be upon them by happen chance and then decided, let's go check out this human? What was it? But in either case, it didn't last too long, because as quickly as it happened, the UFO/cloud disappeared, and then that was it. That was the last time that this user stated they were able to see these figures. Interesting stuff. Just one thing I wanted to mention too, it reminded me of a book that I one time saw on Amazon. I can't find the listing for it for the life of me evermore. So I wish I could have screenshot it. I wish I could have saved it somewhere. But this book stated, without further ado, it guaranteed that you could hail a UFO. And part of it involved manipulating clouds. I remember reading some excerpts from it, and it was discussing that. It was the idea that you lay on the grass or wherever you're at and look upwards and then start playing with your mind on clouds, whatever is in front of you in terms of the sky and the clouds above it. So the idea is it's one way of many ways afterward to call upon a UFO, and it guaranteed that a UFO would visit you. Now, I necessarily am not going to do something like that. Why would you want to have something like that happen to you? You have no idea what the UFO and the aliens are going to do to you afterwards, right? You hear those horror stories especially. But this book guaranteed it. So somebody out there has read this book and has followed the list of detailed instructions. Looking at the clouds and manipulating them is just one. I mean, there's steps. There's multiple steps. I don't want to read the other steps. I never will, even if the book was in front of me. But that book made an impression on me as to, being able to call upon a UFO, and it was through clouds. So made me wonder if this user had some knowledge to it, or if these UFOs and the aliens with them involving clouds, if there's any tie to that book or anything else involving that. Next story is called Beach Encounter, and it comes from a user by the name of Happy Girl, and here's what it says. Okay, so a couple of friends and I experienced something pretty unsettling at the beach a couple of weeks ago, and I've been really trying to make sense of it. I'm not going to dive in and see if anyone else has had a similar experience, so let's go ahead. So it's about 2:30 in the morning. 3 friends and I went to Juno Beach in Florida to look at the stars and listen to music. One of my friends points out to me that a really bright star in the sky was moving. At first, I didn't believe it, but after observing it for a while, I noticed it was moving up. It was moving up, it was moving down, side to side. I'd never seen a UFO before, so I was pretty excited. After staying and looking at the sky for a while, my friend and I were looking straight up, and I swear this thing with color-changing lights just materialized in the middle of the sky and then shot all the way to the right, seemingly across the entire skyline in like 2 seconds. It was crazy. We saw a couple more of these and we're all in disbelief at this point because there were so many. Around 3:45, I'm laying down on the beach just enjoying the sound of the waves crashing when my friend sees a red light come out of the water underneath this boardwalk about a half a mile away. I sit up and sure as blank, this bright glowing red light is moving towards us. I turn off my music and I get a terrible feeling like something really bad is about to happen. And so I say, should we go? As it's been 15 seconds and this thing is more than halfway to us, we all get an impending doom sort of feeling. And so we just book it to the car, leaving all of our things behind. We watch from the stairs as this thing makes it a half a mile to our little spot, now in just under 30 seconds in the water. It was like on the shoreline, so maybe in about 2 inches of water. However, I don't think a human could move that quickly on sand or in the water. And so I told my family, and my stepmom brought it to my attention, that people looking for turtles with red lights, that could be them, as to not scare them off. But I just don't think that that's what it was. I don't know. All of us immediately felt scared upon seeing the light, and as it got closer, it didn't appear that there was a human or really anything behind it. Naturally, I want to rationalize it, but I just don't feel like it's one of those things I can explain away. I have pretty crazy intuition too, and something told me to get the blank out. Thoughts, everyone? And then that's where it ends right there. So let's go ahead and let's talk about this encounter, this beach encounter from Happy Girl. So interesting stuff right here. You have in this case a situation involving the beach, and this time it's at nighttime, 2:30 in the morning to be specific. There they are, her and her 3 friends, I believe, and then they're out there looking at the sky, at the night sky. And then sure enough, there's something moving up, moving down, moving side to side, and she was excited. It's a UFO. What definitely made me realize, in other words, reading this story, that it was a UFO is, again, the way that it shot across the entire skyline in just under 2 seconds. What else can do that, right? Not only that, but what else can do that and then stop, move up, move down, move side to side, and so on? Nothing natural. So definitely something along those lines of it being of a UFO. And then the next step was apparently an alien encounter. He had something that was just a glowing red light, and it was there underneath the water, moving across a boardwalk, again underneath the water, about a half mile away, but it was moving very fast, very close to them. In just under 30 seconds, it had apparently reached their spot. Obviously, they had decided to get out of there before it reached them. Very, very smart for them to do so. But there it was. It knew where they were. It went to their location, and then it stayed at their location. And then again, the way that this points to it being some kind of weird alien rather than something involving a human or someone else, or something else that could be explained naturally, is the fact that there was only about 2 inches of water where this bright light was. What else could be able to move that fast and pinpoint to a specific location and only have 2 inches of water in terms of clearance without being above the water? Remember, the user kept saying that they were in the water, whatever this thing was. So if it was a person, and let's say they happened to magically move that quickly within 2 inches of water, you could still make out the rest of their body, right? You could see the top part of their body because there they are trying to swim in those 2 inches of water. But this thing, whatever it was, did not make its presence known. It may have even been just an actual light, some kind of light that UFOs use that I've talked about in the past within some of my videos, involving almost like a surveillance light, something like that, something that flies around to gather evidence, to gather some kind of observations. I think that that's what the case was here. But quick thinking when it comes to them, for the user, because they got out of there as quickly as possible, I would do the same thing as well. And then that's it. Last story comes from a user by the name of Happy Limon, and they titled theirs as "Was It a Sleep Paralysis?" So here's what they say. Context: I, 26 female, live alone in the countryside of Belgium with a cat and a guard dog. Now, my dog isn't always allowed upstairs, so she sleeps at the bottom of the stairs that lead to my bedroom. My bedroom is big and has its own bathroom and balcony. A bay window faces my bed and it opens onto the balcony. The balcony is on the second floor, facing my fenced garden, and I have a roof window in the bathroom, which is in a separate room. My cat sometimes enters by the window when it's open, and I'm too lazy to open the bay window. Then there was a heat wave last week, and I was sleeping with my bay window wide open. I wasn't worried that someone might break into my house because my garden and my balcony aren't easily accessible, and I live far away from civilization. And so I woke up at around 2 a.m. to my dog suddenly barking and growling aggressively. She seemed nervous. Her eyes were glassy. She was growling in my direction. And so I went downstairs to calm her down, but she was behaving weirdly. I pulled the curtains thinking she might be nervous because of a fox or a bear. And so I went to the toilet and then went back to bed. Now I felt a migraine was coming on and my ears were already starting to ring. I tried to fall asleep to feel better. And so I slept like 30 minutes and woke up to some noise on my roof. Something was heading towards my roof window. I thought it was my cat and I turned to fall asleep again, but then I noticed a luminosity shift in my bedroom as if something was now in front of my bay window, which again, I've mentioned this again, was open. And so I immediately felt that something was off. The atmosphere was heavy. I felt like I was being observed. My body was now paralyzed. I was breathing fast, but I tried to be as silent as possible. My dog started barking really loudly now, just behind my bedroom door, even though she's not allowed upstairs. And so I turned around to turn on the light and go see to her, and that's when I saw it. A tall, lanky, and muscular silhouette. A skull that was way too long, longer than Akhenaten's one. I couldn't see its face, but I felt his eyes on mine. I was too stunned to shout. My voice couldn't sound. My heart was racing. My body was frozen. Next thing I remember is me suddenly waking up at 6 in the morning. My body was stiff. I was exhausted and angry for no reason. And then I remembered this, what I thought was a nightmare or a sleep paralysis. And so I had a shower and I noticed 4 small bruises on my forearm as if a large hand had been holding me. Since then, I can't sleep peacefully at night. I'm scared to have the same nightmares slash sleep paralysis slash encounter. My shutters are closed every night, but I have really bad nightmares about it. And then that's it. That's everything from that user, Happy Limon. So let's talk about that here. Scary encounter, right? I saved this one for last because this one definitely makes an impression when it comes to what happened to this poor user. So she was stating there she's living on the countryside in Belgium, far away from civilization. She's in an area there that's, to her at least, relatively safe, right? And she's in a bedroom that is also safe because it's apparently on the 2nd floor, and it's hard for anyone to try to access it from the ground, in other words, so she can leave the window open and again feel safe. But apparently something was already scaring her dog to the point that they were barking and growling aggressively. And so thinking that it was something else, an animal that was out there that was catching the attention of the dog, she decided to put it elsewhere. And then that's when she started to get physical encounters. First, she stated she had a migraine, and then her ears started to ring. She tried to fall asleep, and it seemed like it was for just a little tiny while, like 30 minutes, that it worked. But then she heard it. Apparently, something was on the roof. This is the kind of stuff that it would be like a great movie scene, because in this case, whatever it was, she could tell that it was moving across the roof almost in an intelligent manner, and obviously going in one direction, her window. And so she decided to go there. And then the second telltale sign was the light in the room suddenly shifted, because the bedroom with the window open was illuminated, I guess, by the moon, something else that is out there. But all of a sudden it became darker when a figure was standing in front of the window. No way. That's, again, straight out of a horror movie, right? And then that's when she turned on the light after, again, hearing her dog now barking its jaw off because it was just absolutely going bonkers behind the bedroom door. And then that's when she saw it. She described it as being tall, lanky, and a muscular silhouette. So something very dark, in other words. And a skull that was way, way, way too long. She could not make out its face, but she could definitely tell that whatever its eyes were facing straight towards her. And then that's when the next physical thing happened, where she became paralyzed. Her body was frozen. It felt like it was completely stiff. Her heart was racing. She couldn't even utter any sound. And then, almost like magic, her next moment, it was 6 a.m. So whatever happened between that timeline is apparently erased. It is not there in her memory anymore. She just woke up, and then the only other thing that she realized was that it must have been either a nightmare or sleep paralysis, something else, or some kind of encounter, an alien encounter. And then the only proof of it afterwards is apparently some 4 small bruises on her forearm, but it's definitely made a lasting impact on her, because she no longer really has a good night's sleep anymore. She just keeps thinking about what it's going to happen again, when it's going to happen again, or if there's going to be something different afterward. Scary stuff. Imagine that, being out there in the middle of the country and then having that happen and you're stuck. What are you going to do? You're going to sell your home all of a sudden? You're going to move away? Yeah, most people can't do that, right? So then she's stuck in that spot with whatever it was that found her. Oh, man, that's scary. So I have no opinion on what it could be. I don't recall any alien being that tall. Normally aliens in the world of UFOs are the shorter kind, unless mantis people, I don't know. Somebody let me know in the comments what you guys and gals think as to what this alien could be. But that's it, everyone. 3 stories for this latest Aliens and UFOs video. Share your comments, post them below, and I shall see y'all next time. All right, everyone, take care.